I didn't want to go. This eminent domain here was not for a bridge or a road or a school. This was simply somebody else wanted to live here. This is so private people could make money off where I lived and my neighbors lived.
In 2005, Sussex Kelo, along with other plaintiffs, sued the City of New London for their use of eminent domain, stating that they didn't use it properly. The state wanted to use Kelo's property to lease it to other private institutions. New London argued that the developers they leased the property to would bring in more revenue for local economy than these couple of houses would. With a depressed economy, the government had the right to lease the property to stimulate growth, which would qualify as public use.
That you can't take from A to give to B, that there is some substance and force to that proposition?
There's some force to it. I certainly would.
Let me qualify it. You can take from A to give to B if B pays more taxes.
If it's a significant amount, obviously there's a cost.
Okay. I'll accept that.
Yeah.
You can take from A and give to B if B pays significantly more taxes.
Kelo argued two things. First, that taking their private property to sell to private developers did not qualify as public use. And second, that the city had violated the Fifth Amendment and was trying to take private property without just compensation.
I think the key to understanding their argument is the answer to the question of, can you take a Motel 6 and give it to a fancier hotel? Their answer is yes. And that's what's really at stake here. These condemnations are taking place throughout the country. A city in California condemns the 99-cent store in order to give it to Costco. Now, were they giving enormous benefits to Costco? Of course they were, but they did so because they wanted to get the tax revenue. And that's the problem with these types of condemnations. The desire to help a private party and the desire to help the public are really one and the same. The public only benefits if the private party is successful.
The power of eminent domain has been established in the Constitution. Eminent domain gives the states the power to seize property if it is a blight to society or for public use. The Fifth Amendment's takings clause limits this power by stating that just compensation must be given to the owner of the property being taken by the state, and the 14th Amendment's due process clause, which applies this rule to state and local government. The question at hand was whether or not states could take private property and give it to other private investors as a solution to their poor economy.
In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the city's taking of Kelo's property qualified as public use and was within the domain of the takings clause. Despite the fact that the land would not actually be used by the public, the takings clause could be extended to include public benefit, and because the public as a whole would benefit from the tax revenue, it qualified as public use.
It is not within our authority as a court to determine the plan's likelihood of success, nor to determine whether New London would have been wiser to pursue economic development in some other way. Our authority extends only to determining whether the city's proposed takings are for a public use within the meaning of the Fifth Amendment to the Federal Constitution. An unbroken line of our case law dictates an affirmative answer to that question.
An important precedent was set here. The government can take private property regardless of whether or not it's blighted if replacing it will raise more tax revenue.
If they didn't sell their homes, they were going to be taken by eminent domain. First you read it and you're like, oh yeah, right, New London. It's sort of like New London's always trying to do something, and everything it does fails. And in there it said that the Calamari brothers had sold their scrapyard to the state. So I actually went down there and talked to the Calamari brothers. And he said to me, he said, listen, this is the first I've heard of it. He said, I didn't know I was selling my land either.